I have had the good fortune of attending every uh, edition of the festival since it was launched. And the first edition was incidentally held in the same premises. Uh, and it was not by design, but it was the last minute arrangement we had to do because venues were denied to the organizers under pressure from the usual suspects. Uh, Now, Alo has sort of made my job easier. She wanted me to speak on the transformation of India. So we have had several sessions over here. Shamika, my colleague in government, she has had two wonderful presentations. One on why every Indian deserves free food paid for by people like you and me, and the other one is a presentation this morning on elimination of poverty, absolute poverty in India. So one could talk about hard data about India's growth, India's emergence. But most of it is known that India is going to be the largest, is the third largest economy in the world, most probably to become the second largest economy in the next couple of years. It is the fastest growing uh, economy, faster than China. It will continue to grow at anything between 7 and 8% over the next couple of years, which means there will be greater generation of prosperity and people will be earning more than what they are right now. So, if we look at today's India, it bears very little resemblance from where we were 75 years ago, 76 years ago, when we emerged as an independent republic. Uh, we were poor, and we were not only poor, we were, I think, dirt poor. And from there, we have come a long way. So, we were a country which had been robbed of $45 trillion over a span of 300 years by the colonizers. Now, this is not some figure which has been uh, concocted by the loony right, as of people often call the right. This is a figure which was calculated by one of the leading left-wing economists, Utsa Patnaik, and she explains how all this money was robbed from this country. When we became free, we did not get the money which the rulers, then colonial rulers, owed us. That was the war debt. We didn't have any bridging finances. We did not have hospitals. We did not have sufficient colleges. We did not have an education system that was self-sustaining uh, or that was trained into producing people for the national good. We had an education system that was designed to produce people for the colonial good. And the early years were difficult. And although Nehru is uh, commended for laying the foundations of a new India, it was really not Nehru but individuals who went about doing it. Uh, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. It was set up by the health minister of that time, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur. If you look at the first IIT which was set up in the country, IIT Kharagpur, it was set up by B.C. Roy, and it was set up without any central assistance. First, a small institute was opened in Calcutta, then fields which were when to produce paddy for the British troops, British armies. Those were converted in Kharagpur. Those fields were converted into the campus of what we now know as IIT Kharagpur. And one could go on and on and on. We had a terrible problem with smallpox in this country, and we did not have the vaccine. We did not have the capacity or capability to produce vaccines on our own. So we had to be dependent on smallpox vaccine that was donated to us. And every time a shipment of one box of vaccines would come, there would be photographs in the newspaper, front page photographs of senior ministers, Congress leaders lining up over there to receive that gift of charity. Unfortunately, even those vaccines could not be used properly because Mr. Nehru thought Indians did not need to be told or trained into how to go about vaccinating people. So he encouraged a rebellion among the bureaucrats against the WHO officials. And the smallpox vaccination drive suffered so much that we went through an endemic of smallpox in this country not once but twice. So from there, if we look at how we handled the COVID situation, how we not only manufactured vaccine but gave it to others, uh, again it shows it tells us a story of how far India has travelled along the road of development, of growth, of prosperity, and self-reliance on food. I don't know how many of you would remember it, but there was a time when we were dependent on US charity. It was US wheat, which was meant for cattle feed, that would be shipped out to India, and it was under an American law called PL 480, and it was a ship to mouth existence that we had in this country till well into the early 70s when the quote unquote the green revolution happened, and since then, as Shamika explained yesterday, we now have a food index of 128. That means if we are consuming 100 units, we are producing 128 units. So almost more than 25% of the food which we produce is in excess of what we need. And that again is a story of India's prosperity, India's growth, India's development. So if we look at it in terms of economic growth, economic development, we have come a long way, a long journey, and we are no longer a slumdog country. We are no longer a Bhutananga Bharat. We are no longer a povertarian India. But the question which we should really be asking is whether we have been able to sort of also inculcate a sense of identity as to who are we. Who are we as Indians? Who are we as members of a dharmic group? Who are we as individuals? Who are we as families, as communities? And these questions, I think, have suffered enormously, and answers to them remain still out there because of the forced secularization that happened of India. And when I say forced secularization, I don't think before 1947 that sense of a fake secular identity as a nation existed. So what was done is that it was transplanted, it was grafted, but not through the first constitution, but during the emergency when it was grafted into the preamble, and then the activation happened much faster, although it began in 1952 itself. So if we look back, the Hindu personal laws were reformed, but other personal laws were left untouched. And the logic was Hindus would accept reform, but others won't. And therefore, because they won't, they need to be protected. Now that is a twisted logic. And that is why I say it was a forced secularization. And it never really worked because if you look at it and how it happened, Nehru brought in the Hindu personal law reforms. There were five major reforms. I'm not suggesting or debating the necessity of those reforms. That's a separate thing. We can talk about it separately. But it happened while Christian personal law, the Muslim personal law, those remained untouched. And then we see when Indira Gandhi becomes Prime Minister and she wants to bring in the adoption law, which would allow every Indian to adopt a child. And Islam prohibits adoption. So you had people running riot in the streets in opposition to the adoption law, adoption bill. And it was in response to the adoption bill that a monstrosity called Muslim Personal Law Board was set up. And the Muslim Personal Law Board was set up as an NGO, not as a government body, not as a quasi-government body, although they name themselves using words which are misleading. It conveys the impression as if it is a quasi-government body or a government body, which it isn't. Now, if we look further down the line, Rajiv Gandhi becomes Prime Minister. The most scorching decision of that government, apart from foolishly sending troops into Sri Lanka, was to overturn the Shah Bano judgment. And again, the judgment was overturned because the government said Muslims are not going to accept the judgment. Therefore, their non-acceptance has to be protected and encoded through the Muslim Muslim women protection on divorce bill, which is again misleadingly named because what the bill serves to do is that a Muslim woman is being denied alimony and maintenance on divorce. And then that is followed by an uproar, and to counterbalance it, the locks on the disputed structure in Ayodhya are open, which in turn sets into motion a series of events that we collectively know as the Ayodhya movement. Now, where am I coming in from? The point which I'm trying to make is that when you have post-secularization, there will be a counter force of desecularization. When people will resist the post-secularization and they will opt for desecularization. And for the last 30-40 odd years, what we have been witnessing is the desecularization of Indian society. Now, on the face of it, this may seem to be something very problematic, but what it has done is that it has sharpened the idea of Hindu aspirations, of Hindu political aspirations. And while doing that, it has also revived the debate of over who are we, what are we. And this idea of Hindutva that we now talk of gathers speed during this time, and because that reflects the larger concept, the popular concept of who are we and what are we. It brings together three different strains. It brings Hinduism, that is the religious strain. It brings into the fold cultural ideas, cultural identities, or broadly the culture of India, and it brings into the stream the idea of nationalism. So, hence you have the birth of Hindu cultural nationalism, although it is essentially a rebirth of this concept.